For some time now, the Philippine automotive manufacturing industry has been lagging in ASEAN. In 2015, our production of 94,000 completely knocked down, or CKD units, supplied 30% of total sales. The rest were imported completely built-up units, or CBUs, mostly from ASEAN. In comparison, Thailand produced 1.91 million units, while Indonesia produced 1.1 million units, with both countries having established export capability. Looking back to the 70s, the Philippines was ahead of everyone in implementing the Progressive Car Manufacturing Program, or the PCMP. This initial program encouraged local assembly of vehicles using imported CKD kits. We also initiated the development of the Asian utility vehicle. By 1978, we already led ASEAN in vehicle manufacturing. The PCMP was implemented at a time when high tariffs protected the domestic market and discouraged imports. In exchange for access to our protected market, the PCMP imposed mandatory local content that required production of key components. It also triggered production of other local parts and components. All was well until the political turmoil in the mid-80s, which led to a foreign exchange crisis that pretty much sunk the Philippine automotive manufacturing industry. As the peso depreciated from 8 to 21 to the dollar, the government adopted forex controls, which restricted import of CKD kits. By 1986, our vehicle production dropped to 5,000 units, and in its wake, only one assembler remained operating. In the late 80s to mid-90s, as the economy recovered, so did the auto industry. By 1996, CKD production hit 138,000, comprising 85% of the domestic vehicle sales. Unfortunately, the ASEAN financial crisis once again knocked the industry down as production dropped back to 68,000. As the peso depreciated and vehicle prices went up, used vehicle imports started to come in droves. Unbridled, these imports reached 125,000 units in 2004, accounting for 60% of total vehicle sales. Meanwhile, the Philippines accelerated tariff reductions well ahead of the ASEAN schedule. Tariff on imported CBU dropped from 40% in 1996 down to 5% in 2002. Consequently, under stiff competition from CBUs and used vehicle imports, local vehicle production eroded. By 2006, of the total sales of 155,000, local production only comprised of 54,000, with the bulk coming in as CBUs and used vehicles. While used vehicle imports have been expectedly curbed, CBU imports now dominate, capturing 70% of the domestic market. The country today is in the midst of motorization. As experienced by our ASEAN neighbors, motorization sets in once a country's GDP per capita hits $2,500, and vehicle demand grows at least twice the GDP growth rate. Our GDP per capita now hovers around $3,000. In the last 4 years, vehicle sales have grown by an average of 17%, which is more than twice our GDP growth average of 6.2%. Full motorization is expected to continue, with annual demand hitting 500,000 by 2022. This new vehicle demand, regardless of the ongoing traffic crisis, will persist, with or without local auto manufacturing. The question then becomes, from where will our vehicle supply come? From the factories in Thailand and Indonesia? Or from Santa Rosa, Laguna? In other words, the country's dilemma is, do we make or do we buy? Shall the country persevere in auto manufacturing? Or should we just continue importing CBUs? There are 23 countries in the world today with at least 60 million people. Notably, only one country does not have local vehicle manufacturing. And of the top 15 automotive producers, only Thailand does not belong to the top 15 countries in GDP terms. Clearly, auto manufacturing correlates strongly with population and with GDP. In the absence of a local auto manufacturing industry, 90% of the country's projected 1 million units demand by 2030 will be supplied by imported CBUs at a cost of $20 billion per year. This would also mean that the Philippines would be giving up over 300,000 local jobs to our neighboring countries. These two factors, the huge forex cost of importation and loss of job opportunities, are surely too high a price to pay for not having a local auto manufacturing industry. Fortunately, despite historical setbacks, the country somehow managed to maintain its parts-making capability. We continue to produce auto parts such as seats, carpets, aluminum wheels, wiring harnesses, small metal and plastic parts, and others. Together, these comprise some 35% of the parts value of a vehicle. Given its extensive linkages to raw materials and industrial processes in other sectors, growth in auto manufacturing naturally leads to expanding technical capabilities and overall industrial growth. Clearly, auto manufacturing is at the core of the country's manufacturing resurgence, therefore a key driver of Philippine industrial development. To thrive in today's free trade environment, Philippine automotive manufacturing must compete head-to-head with CBU imports from ASEAN. For it to compete successfully, the industry must overcome two factors: high import logistics and high unit production cost, that together comprise its production handicap estimated at $1,500 to $1,800 per unit. The Philippine auto manufacturing sector must therefore level up to economic scale, not only to survive competition, but also to flourish in a growing economic environment. With the expected sustained economic growth and ongoing motorization, the country must seize the moment to pursue auto manufacturing resurgence. Thus, the government, in May 29, 2015, issued Executive Order 182, providing for the Comprehensive Automotive Resurgence Strategy, or CARS Program, as a vehicle to jumpstart the country's auto manufacturing industry. The CARS program is sui generis, a first-of-its-kind program to provide for fiscal-capped, time-bound, and performance-based support to any industry. Its objective is to raise production level to competitive scale by providing fiscal support for the manufacture of 3 models, each with a minimum volume requirement of 200,000 units over 6 years, the normal life period for a vehicle model. The fiscal support package, equivalent to $1,000 per unit, is divided into 2 components. Production volume incentive will be given to participating car makers to encourage the production of 200,000 units. This volume will justify the production of body shell and large plastic parts, 2 items that contribute to the high logistics and efficiencies of local vehicle assembly. Fixed investment support will be given to the participating car makers and their parts suppliers to induce investments in the manufacture of strategic parts and components. The net effect of the $1,000 per unit fiscal support in terms of the reduction of import logistics and lowering of overall unit production costs is equivalent to $1,930 per unit, enough to offset the estimated $1,500 to $1,800 cost handicap that currently besets the Philippine auto manufacturing. The PVI will be calibrated according to the degree of parts localization and will be released upon meeting a minimum production of 100,001 units, while the FIS, equivalent to 40% of the capital expenditure, will be given upon market introduction of the model using the manufactured part. The conditions for the release of the PVI and FIS guarantee the performance-based characteristic of the program. The fiscal support will be given in the form of non-transferable tax payment certificates, or TPCs, that can only be used to pay obligations due to the national government. In exchange for the government support, the country reaps from a robust auto manufacturing industry, benefits that include increased auto parts making capabilities, possible export of vehicles and auto parts, and most importantly, employment generation for an all-inclusive growth. Executive Order 182 mandates the BOI as the lead implementing agency of the CARS program, supporting the BOI to ensure faithful compliance with the program objectives is an interagency committee that provides multidisciplinary perspective, together with the Program Management Office, for the technical, logistics, and administrative support to the program implementation. The Comprehensive Automotive Resurgence Strategy Program, ready to take the automotive industry to the fast lane.